Hello, Waterloo Region. You're listening to Meet the Candidate on CKMS-FM 102.7 Radio Waterloo. My name is Bob Jonkman. In this episode, we meet Colleen James, a Liberal candidate for Kitchener Centre. In Meet the Candidate, Radio Waterloo provides 25 minutes of free airtime to the Waterloo Region candidates running in the Ontario provincial election. This is not an interview, but 25 minutes of unstructured time. Candidates could tell you about their party platform, the local Waterloo Region issues they'll be tackling, why they're running, or what they do outside of politics. Note that the views expressed are not necessarily those of the Radio Waterloo Board of Directors, volunteers, sponsors, or advertisers. Now, let's meet the candidate, Colleen James.
Hi, good morning, everyone. And Bob, thanks for having me on the show to talk about me and the campaign and all of, the whys behind all of this. So I am Colleen James. I'm the Ontario Provincial Liberal candidate for Kitchener Centre. Born and raised in Kitchener, Kitchener Centre, KW Hospital, what was formerly known before Grand River. And, growing up here, I had a very good childhood. My parents, they came from islands of Antigua and St. Kitts via the U.S. Virgin Islands. And then when they came here, they had me and brought my 3 older siblings with them. So, I love this community. This community has shaped who I am as an individual. It is, there is something about being in a community where there's literally 2 degrees of separation between people. And I like that. And growing up, if I went to Cameron Heights and if I skipped a class, there was somebody who would have called my parents and said, Colleen's not in class today. So, there's something about that small hometown feel and, the community's grown significantly and we have to prepare for that. But I want you all to know a little bit about me. So, I went to Cameron Heights and then later Resurrection and went to university went to University of Toronto and got my undergrad in history, political science, and Caribbean studies. And one point wanted to be a lawyer. But when I was in Toronto, I ended up getting a job working for Mike Harris Sr. And I was the media analyst. So this is way before social media and all of that. I had to be there at about 4 a.m. and I had to go through all of the articles that were coming out by various media sources and then present it to him first thing in the morning. And I was reading all about the things that were happening and cuts to healthcare and education. And, wasn't something that I aligned with. And while I appreciated that time there, I went on to other things and a little bit about the perspective that I have. And I'll just go back a little bit because I think the grounded in community is something very important and we should recognize. And, when I was in high school, I worked I volunteered at the soup kitchen, St. John's Anglican Church, before, the working center took it over and all of that. And what I recognized from those days was, community, it wasn't just about feeding people. It was about making sure that, people had, people to discuss and they weren't isolated and alone. So, and we're going back many, many, many years ago and recognizing that at an early age. So, when I left school and jump back ahead now, when I left Toronto and I came back home, as I always knew I would, I worked in various industries. So, I worked for Nike Canada for a bit in the sporting industry and NBA Canada and worked at Manulife, learning about finances. I used to find missing money and spent some time at CG, Center for International Governance Innovation, learning about, policies, redesigning policies, government relations. And I had an opportunity, went to work at the City of Waterloo. And the City of Waterloo enabled me to really dig into the municipal perspective of everything and municipal governance and how connected it is to community, something, as I said before, very grounded in, and spent a number of years there, and then left and worked for the region. And, I loved the City of Waterloo working there. It enabled me to understand kind of municipal governments from that, that lower tier perspective. And then I went to work at the region and then I saw how everything was connected. and how decisions that were being made were impacting, the entire region and the planning that was involved in that, and thinking about things like transportation. So, I value those years, and it's helped to shape who I am, and also my devotion to politics and the importance of having informed decisions and being able to make informed decisions. And I, spent about just about 10 years there, just or so, and had a family, got married, and have a young daughter now who's growing up in the school system. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But one of the things I recognized was that if we are not connected to community, how are we going to ensure that we're making the decisions that are going to impact us, not just now, but, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road, that kind of forward thinking, kind of growth mindset. We know we're growing in population, but when I looked at policies, I thought these policies are they're not reflective of our current place and time. So, with all that said, something in me said, let me go back to school. And I went and did a master's of educational leadership and policy, and working with adults. And through that, started a business. I do consulting business, helping to redesign systems. So taking all of that experience that I had working in various sectors and industries, and understanding that there's gaps, which I think many of us know, but how do we redesign those? So I work with businesses to redesign, make them more proactive instead of reactive, and thinking about things from a holistic approach, and focused on sort of that equity and innovation, and how do we ensure everybody's needs are met, or preparing for when people's needs change. Because if I ask people if what your needs were 5 years ago compared to now, I think they're going to change, and they will change, because that's we don't stay the same. So something I do in how I shape the decisions that are being made. So I'm currently your regional counselor, and I decided to run based on all of the factors that have shaped my career, who I am, my personal life, and thinking, okay, well, we need to have people who can bring in perspectives to help with how we're growing and how we're designing and how we're shaping community. And I ran in 2022. And also, I think one of the reasons I did run is because when I was a political staffer, I was saying things, and they weren't being heard in the way that that I think could alleviate some of the challenges we're facing today. So I thought, what better way than to put my name on a ballot? I'm committed to the community, and I ran in 2022 and got elected. And it is an honor to serve the community and to be involved in the ways that are meaningful to people, but also building relationships with people. And as a counselor, there's been a number of things I've been able to do. And I'm going to speak a little bit about that. What have I been able to do? Because I'm an action-based person. I don't want to get into a role and then not do anything. I don't think that's that's not going to get us further, and that's not going to solve some of the challenges. So, the minute I became a regional counselor, we had the province, they introduced Bill 23. So that was the planning. And delegating planning to the local area municipalities. And the first thing I had to do was introduce motions to say, slow down this process here. Who informed this decision? We need more consultation. The region had a regional official plan that many communities, many partners were involved with. When you're making plans, you can't make everybody happy. But at the same time, there was such a collaborative approach to that. And then to come into a role, and the first thing, and I was chair of planning and works at the time, to say, wait a second, they're about to, this is going to, disrupt the regional official plan. And we had no idea about, who informed that. So I introduced a bill just to slow down that process, do more consultation, successfully passed. And, I'll give credit to community. There are more people who know a lot more about planning. And it was, the approach to me about collaborating and working with community helped to inform that motion. So from day one, action. Introduced a motion around stopping harassment by local elected officials. This is something that in politics it can get messy, it can get nasty, and making sure there's an accountability for elected officials. And that motion was passed, and of course, went to the province, because that's what we do when we say, okay, we need to change municipal acts and bring it to the province. And nothing was done with that, even though it was so important. Coming back to that action-based oriented person that I am, a few of the other things, and I just want to list some of the things that I've done, because I want people to understand what it means when you have elected officials who not only say they're going to do something, but then do something. When I'm speaking to people at the doors, there's a lot of apathy. There's a lot of people who are disappointed in their politicians, or, they're not seeing results. And I think it's needed for an accountability piece. So, working with community, as chair of, it's now Sustainability, Infrastructure and Development. It's no longer planning and works, because ever since the province did all their things, I said, well, we need to make sure that the title of this portfolio reflects and is more in tune with, what the region is doing and the work that staff are doing there. And conscious of the staff, as a former staffer, want to make sure they felt seen and heard. So I changed the name of the committee to Sustainability, Infrastructure and Development. In that portfolio is transportation. And I have worked a lot with community to ensure that we have a better running service. Introduced the late night loop that involved community in that, making sure that, students, those working late, those local businesses, there was a way and means for transportation. And that came about because of the affordability crisis we have. It's not affordable for everyone to take taxis or Ubers, and there's a safety issue in that as well. So pushing that forward. As of late, we've also had the calls for people to have transportation free for youth. And I knew we couldn't do the youth right away, but I thought there is something we can do. And so, a simple definition of what a child is enabled me to change the free child fare from 4 to 6. And I know there's still work for that. And I do believe transportation should be complementary. But, I think we need upper levels of government to support that. And I do believe it can be done, because we see a lot of money being spent on things that nobody's asked for, but things that people have asked for have been ignored by this government for the past 7 years. Wastewater monitoring. So we got through this pandemic, and a lot of the reason why we could identify how the COVID was tracking was through our wastewater monitoring. I found out the province cut the funding for this region and many others for monitoring wastewater. And if we want to avoid future infectious diseases, I think that was critical. So put forward a motion there and worked with community, worked with people at the university, those in water and public health to say, how can we do this? Because it's important and it's critical. We don't want to see another infectious disease spread through the community, and there is not enough investment in tracking that. And I think that was one of the things that sparked me to run as well provincially, was because there was letters and calls going to the province, and nobody's speaking to them at the legislature, and we are there navigating it at a municipal level. I've introduced funding for healthcare or for youth, because I recognize our youth in our community, they are struggling. I look at the data with mental health. I want to make sure they feel seen and heard. I want people to know that when you have a representative, and as much as I can go to the events and I can take pictures, I'm having conversations and I'm taking that information and I'm making sure that it's being brought up in a way that people hear it, and that it's a strong voice to say this needs to happen, and community, rallies around me in a way that helps me get this work done. Thinking about under-resourced, overlooked groups. Funding needed, supports needed to sustain some of the programs. We as elected officials don't need to necessarily do the thing when there are groups that are able and capable of providing support needed, especially for diverse communities. So ensuring that there is mechanisms for organizations to do the work to address, societal challenges is important to me. So introducing a community capacity building fund was critical. And so let me just bring it to the why with why I'm running for MPP, because I think people need to hear that. And, I watch the legislature late at night sometimes, and I know if I'm spending 15 hours at a council meeting and we're discussing homelessness, we're discussing budgets, and then we're not hearing that same, and I'm not hearing that same emphasis about how municipalities are struggling and putting that onus on taxpayers. We need investment into Kitchener Center, and I'm not seeing that investment. We know that our homelessness, it's growing. 2,300 people as of late, and I do think that's an underestimate. We have a plan to end chronic homelessness. It's not a perfect plan, but it is a plan. It is solutions-based, 100 organizations part of that, and it has not been endorsed by our MPPs. So that plan that we need is being put on the backs of our local tax base. That's not right. We are a service manager. We are the only province that is not supporting our homelessness initiatives in a way that takes the pressure off of people in an affordability crisis. And, thinking about healthcare in our community. Our platform, one of the number one things is about healthcare, because we know we don't have enough doctors. And in Kitchener alone, there's about 20,000 people who do not have doctors over this region. There's just under 150,000. That's a healthcare crisis. And when I think back to my days working for the Harris Senior, Premier Harris Senior, and I think about those health cuts, and I think about now we're seeing the same thing happening. We should be able to have a family doctor here. We have a Chamber of Commerce that does physician recruitment. They are funded by the area municipalities, Kitchener and Cambridge and Waterloo and the region. It's only $300,000. And nothing comes from the province. And this is a crisis when we're thinking about mental health, when we're thinking about, nurse practitioners and investing in a healthcare system to alleviate some of the gaps and this privatization of healthcare that people can't afford. Hear stories all the day of people saying they've been told to go to the States, or they have to wait months and months and months to get, CT scans or to get x-rays or surgeries. That's not okay, and it's worrisome. We have a wait in hospitals. A man was telling me the other day, 12 hours he was waiting with his son one night, and then the other day he had to come back and it was 15 hours. That's not okay. So we're committed to a family doctor for everyone in this province. And, the way we want to do that is there are doctors who are Canadian who are working abroad. We're going to incentivize them to come back. We also know that there are a lot of internationally trained doctors, and the process to utilize that skill set there's too much barriers. I heard of someone the other day who was encouraged to come back to Canada, or to come to Canada to practice. And when they got here, they said, we don't have space in Kitchener for you. That makes no sense. So this province is dropping the ball. And again, I do believe that unless you have some, real understanding of how it impacts municipalities, we're still going to drop the ball on a lot of things and not get investment where we need. We have the affordability crisis, our housing. People are not able to afford homes. And that's one of the barriers. If you can't afford a home, you can't afford to pay the bills, or you're at risk of losing your home. And I know that seniors in this area and across the province, and I think it's even more widespread, are the most at risk for losing their homes right now. So we're going to take off land transfer tax for seniors who want to downsize, for new homeowners. We also are going to take off 8% of your heating and hydro, the provincial portion of that. And for people who make $75,000 or less, your taxes are going to be reduced. I don't like taxes. I don't like approving budgets that are going to impact people, especially on fixed incomes. So how do we ensure that we are helping to make things more affordable for people? Our ODSP, and I know many have said they're going to double the rates, and we will too, but we also will be ensuring that that rate increases at the rate of inflation. So it's not the same. It doesn't say static. And for renters, because we know there are a lot of renters out there that are facing rent evictions, we want to make sure there's rent control in place. And we know that the Ford government removed rent control, and that just exacerbated the challenge now with rent evictions and doubling of rents in many places. And also ensure that there is a streamlined, more efficient landlord-tenant board. 2 months to get through, which means hiring, again, creating jobs for that, but hiring and ensuring that there is a renter's fund for those who are in an extreme situation and they need to have something to help offset while in maintain their and be able to pay their rent. And I think about the focus on Kitchener Centre. There has been no investment in Kitchener Centre right now. But I will give credit to the mayor and the city of Kitchener because they are getting investment. Federally, there's investment, but we're not in a position right now to get investment within the city of Kitchener from a provincial level. And I hear this from organizations. There's youth groups that are, the region's funding it, falling on local tax base, and the province is given nothing. I'm a solutions-based individual. Solutions are... we can't always think about the data and the number and, we know what the numbers are and they don't look good. They don't look good across this province and especially in this community, but we need to be thinking about solutions. And I do believe that I'm bringing a number of years of experience, 18 years in municipal government, plus all the various sectors. I'm taking that to say, how do we redesign and work on outdated policies and have a presence there that people can feel, as cliche it is hopeful, but also to see action. And I think I've demonstrated that in the time I've been at working in municipal government. And I recognize a lot of the barriers are the province. We know the province is spending money on things they shouldn't be and no one's asked for, and they're only benefiting a few and not the majority of people. So, when it comes down to education, I'll just end on this because education is near and dear to my heart as a former professor in the School of Business, but also someone who has a young child going in the education system. If we don't invest in our education system, that is generations that are, when it comes to employment, when it comes to supporting educators and ensuring that they have manageable class sizes, that they have supports for students who need additional supports. The province cut funding to the school boards that had supportive programs. So now you've got educators who have, 30 students in the class and there's no supports there. That impacts our healthcare system because you have educators who are burning out. You have, boards and people who are not able to manage. So, I will ask people that, it is a critical time. Status quo is not going to see any changes right now. And, I've put my name forward. I've proven myself a proven leader to be able to get things done and to be a strong and present voice. And that's what we need. And Kitchener Centre is critical. It is critical for the future of our investment, our economy, but also our affordability. So please vote on February 27th. I am asking for people to put their trust in me again, to vote for Colleen James. And, all of these decisions are informed by community. And now is a time, use your voice to vote. I want to thank you, Bob, for having me on the show today. It's an honor and a privilege, and I am grateful.
You've been listening to Colleen James, a Liberal Party candidate for Kitchener Centre on Meet the Candidate. The views expressed were those of the candidate, not necessarily those of the Radio Waterloo Board of Directors, volunteers, sponsors or advertisers. All Waterloo Region candidates were invited to meet the candidate, but some candidates have declined to appear on the radio and some have not responded at all. Meet the Candidate airs every weekday at 9 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. until Tuesday the 25th of February on CKMS-FM 102.7 Radio Waterloo. Remember, the election is on Thursday, 27th February. Show notes, podcast, and video will be available shortly on the Radio Waterloo website at radiowaterloo.ca/MTC. The show is produced by me, Bob Jonkman, in the studios of CKMS-FM. The theme music is Falling Sky by Jason Shaw of Audionautics and used under Creative Commons Attribution Only 4.0 International License.